But who we really are is who we are when no one is watching. And I only attended a mastermind the other day when someone said, if you're not happy with where you are in life, can you answer this question? If we put a camera on you for 24 hours, would you be proud of your actions that you took within those 24 hours to help you be the person who you want to be, or have the success or have the impact that you want to have? It really hit me, really hit me. And it's a great question if you're sat there having similar thoughts. It's only looking back now that I think, oh, that's why you developed adult acne at the age of 30. That's why you lost your job, your house, your boyfriend split up with you. That makes sense. In today's video, I'm going to share with you me. I'm going to share my story with you. I've had a few people message in to say, Nika, but who are you? What have you done? Tell us more about yourself. Here it goes. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Nika Voster, and I love horses. No, genuinely, I love horses. I think about horses. I'm obsessed with horses. When did this start? Equestrian industry, or being an equestrian, is one of these wonderful sports, and I think quite rare, where you can come into the sport at any age and you can thrive at any age. For me, being on a horse, I could sit on a horse before I could walk. So probably by the age of I don't remember this, but there's photos of me being a couple of months old and just being supported by my mum and my dad on a pony's back. So I was a very happy toddler, child, teenager whenever I was around a horse or on a horse's back. So you could say that the love, passion started pretty early on in my life. I still to this day say that I feel like I'm a horse in a human's body. So when I see a horse, the feeling that comes inside is like something that I can't describe with anything else, with no other interaction but with these horses. I can be driving and be in mid-conversation with someone about a very serious topic, and then I can see a horse in the field and I straight away get distracted and I'm like, what's going on over there? And let me have a look. Or they really affect me on a really inner, deep knowing. It's in me. And when I actually could walk and ride, I learned how to ride bareback. I learned how to ride probably how most kids don't get the benefit and the pleasure of doing today with all the amount of management restriction, health and safety. But for me, it was in fields, no arena, no saddle, no bridle, sometimes learning how to balance, use your seat to stay on board. And I loved it. I mean, I remember running back from school as soon as the bus pulled in. This was in South Africa, that's where I grew up. It was a case of rushing back just to play with the pony and not necessarily riding. I loved being in my pony's presence. So we would build jumps. So building jumps in between the fences of the fields so that him and I could just get on board and go for a nice cross-country jump. Now, probably not the best thing, because when I wasn't there, Sir Bentley, as his name was, had access to all the fields now because he knew which ones he could jump and clear. Very smart pony, maybe definitely teaching me more than I thought at the time. But everything was around ponies. When we immigrated to the UK, Bentley came with. It was my one and only wish, otherwise I was not going. I was very lucky, and my poor parents to this day forever grateful and in their debt. But when Bentley was here, it was all about drawing ponies, drawing horses. So any excuse, it was about horses. The minute I finished getting back from school in the UK, I'd get on my bike and cycle up to the yard just to go and spend time with Bentley. So let's backtrack. When I learned how to ride bareback, it was a case of going to some pony clubs. So pony club games where I grew up in South Africa were huge. So competitive. I loved it. Speed, agility, fun, competition, going as fast as you can on your pony, falling off all the time, getting a little bit cocky, and Bentley would put me right back in my place. Love him for that to this day. Taught me so much. And pony club, now I look back and I've seen this pattern in myself all the time, whereas I was competitive. I wanted to win, but it was never against anyone else. It was always against me. I've always had this level of competition on myself to be better than I was yesterday, to be better than my last show, to win for me, knowing that I gave it my all. So I recognize this because there were times when I would be lucky enough to win and my parents would say, well, congrats, well done. And I'd be like, I'm not happy because I didn't do this right, I didn't do this right, I didn't do this right. And, I let Bentley down. So I was building this level of standard within myself at a very, very early age. And this, now I know, really helped me for who I am today and the health issues and everything that I've been through. But back then I realized I love competing. I love putting myself through challenges, trying new things with my pony. When we immigrated to the UK, Bentley had to go to quarantine, and there's this story that I will never forget where we had a phone call from the yard manager in Germany where Bentley was doing part of his quarantine. We were in France at the time because when we immigrated, we also took over 3 of our dogs. And for the dogs to stay with us meant we as a family had to live in France for a year first, never spoke French in my life, or we had to go to the UK directly, but the dogs then had to spend at least 6 months in a quarantine, and my mum was not having that. I don't blame her. So whilst we were in France, Bentley was in quarantine, and we had a call from the yard manager because he was in this, it's like a special yard, so obviously horses are away from other horses. And along the stable, Bentley was there with some very high quality warm bloods, thoroughbreds worth a lot of money, and there was this little 12-2-hand pony cross between probably 5 different crosses of a horse with a skewed tooth, a skewed jaw. He was so ugly, but I loved every single hair on his head. Bentley had let out one of the very high valued warm bloods on the yard. He had got out and opened the stable door. So he was a little bit cheeky, to say the least. He had such a great personality. Gosh, I love that pony so much. Whilst he was doing that, I went to France for a year and could not give up horses. So I started doing some show jumping there, and I really kind of found my stride with show jumping, learnt more about the technique, learnt more about how to see a stride, when to not see a stride, when to stop interfering, and rode some really brilliant little ponies. Again, the standard of, okay, you are competing in a different country, set your level this high, Nika, train this hard. It was always there. I actually, now that I'm just talking to you, have memories of my dad growing up in South Africa, went to the army. So when he came back from his post, even as kids, probably between the ages of like 10 to 14, my dad would be doing like push-ups in the morning, and just off his own back. He wasn't training or competing for anything. But what I learned there subconsciously, looking at him doing that and giving it a go myself, I can still do more than 10 push-ups today, and pull-ups are like my kind of USP to show the strength in the female rider, is setting your standards high for yourself, no matter who's watching. Being the version of you and being who you really are is when no one is watching. That is who you are. It's not when the glitter, the fame, being in front of the camera, being in front of others. So from France, we went to the UK, and unfortunately I outgrew Bentley quite quickly. I'm still quite small, about 5'2", 5'2.5", but I was getting a bit long in my legs for him, and I just loved riding. So I wanted to do more. I wanted to take my level of riding to a new stage, and Bentley was getting older. So he stayed with us, for context of Bentley, till the day he died. He did go to loan, teach very private young little kids how to ride on a lead rein, and he honestly was, till the day Bentley passed away, severely loved and severely looked after. He lived till he was 26 years old. Love that pony so much, and forever grateful for the lessons that he taught me. My dad sat me down and said, if you really want to give this horses a go, I was like, yes. He was like, we're not going to buy you a pony or a horse. Okay. You are going to go to the racing school in Newmarket and learn about thoroughbreds, learn about racing. In his words, learn how to really ride. I just said yes. My mum was like, I think let's just stop. But she supported me and I went down. Now, the racing school at Newmarket was it opened my eyes, okay? Yes, the racing style is so different to, say, riding in a normal seat. That wasn't the tricky part. It was the lifestyle. It was like going into an army camp. So we had a strict morning routine, breakfast at a set time, training ourselves at a set time. The horses had to be exercised, presented. The boxes, the stables that the horses were in were so immaculate. I mean, it was like every night we had inspection of our horses' boxes. The straw boxes, right, for those of us that are grooms and have mucked out, your boxes had to be packed so much that the straw along the sides had to be packed so tightly that if the manager stood on your straw, that they wouldn't fall down. Just to give you an idea of how compact we had to make the sides of the walls in the stable. The level of grooming was not a speck of dust, an old school way. So after you groomed your horse, you had to get the hair off the curry comb and put the hair on a little mat outside the stable to show you have groomed your horse and to the standard. Like, I'm not kidding. And it sounds crazy me saying this, but it was so much fun. And now looking back, I can see why I loved it. I loved the structure. I loved the routine. In a really maybe sadistic way, I liked the punishment being hard, training harder, like being better than you were yesterday. It's that same setting your standards very high, and something that I live by every day, which is, you fall to the level of your preparation. You fall to the level of what you do on a daily basis, your habits, your thoughts. That matters more than you suddenly getting a motivation spurt and doing something for a short time. The racing school taught me that discipline, and actually more than discipline, identity. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to show up as every single day? I loved it. I remember crying when I left, like with my friend that I made. We were just in tears because we absolutely loved it. Side note, the food was incredible. Having home cooked, like properly fresh, especially in the winter, just English food is just so scrumptious, and there was ample amount of food. So my friend and I would work hard, but we would eat just as hard. So we weren't training to be jockeys at the time, so we indulged, but we burnt off so many calories that, not only mentally but physically, that we just kept going. It was seriously awesome. So from the racing school, I went into my first job in racing, and to say that it was a disaster is an understatement. I realized that I'm a very sensitive person, especially back then. I wore my heart on my sleeve, and emotional is definitely something that I thought was a weakness. Now I know it's just about controlling and understanding your emotions, as opposed to not admitting you have any, because emotions can actually be a blessing. Back then, I realized it was a weakness, and I was severely bullied when I went into racing. I don't want to say rightly so, because that gives the bullies power. I look back now and I laugh, but actually, in a way, looking back, even who I was at the time, despite how I described myself, I didn't give in. And again, looking back, realizing that I had a lot of standards back then, maybe couldn't verbalize it. Maybe it wasn't really that transparent because I was very shy, introverted, but I never gave in. So, judging a book by its cover, even back then, I was not giving in. And I definitely recognize that I'm someone who doesn't give in to peer pressure, and never someone to follow the crowd. If anything, if I see a crowd going one way, I'm more likely to go the other way. I'm more likely to leave, because that is honestly more of the kind of person that I am. So the racing industry, the two jobs I went into, it was nasty. Police got involved, but I quickly realized that, okay, you're gonna change job, find somewhere where you do fit in and where people are more on your level and understanding and support for where you currently are. And I did find a lovely job and loved it. Really developed as a rider, ended up getting my jockey license, amateur, and was so fortunate enough to race in 5 races in total, and winning 2. The feeling of winning a race is like something that I will never forget. The adrenaline that goes through your body, the being one with the horse, this powerful racehorse underneath you, is just absolutely incredible. Like, when you're sat on any horse, whether it's for racing, dressage, show jumping, doing liberty work, and you both have like a very mutual connection, understanding and trust, and both parties want it, it is the most incredible feeling. And that's what I had on the 2 winners that I did have. It was just amazing. Memories that I'll cherish forever. From there, I decided to also continue with my degree. So I did a Bachelor of Science, too broad. Honestly, if I could change back time, I would not do that degree again, but it had its purpose. And before finishing my 3rd year, I deferred and went to Australia. I've always wanted to go. And again, to say that it went smoothly, it was an absolute disaster. The first day I arrived in Australia, bearing in mind, I'd never traveled that far away from family, like traveling to the other side of the world on a 24-hour flight from the UK on my own. I'd had a job arranged when I got there. Australia were very strict in terms of, your placement, your visa, stuff like that. So I had a 6-month job set ready. And when I arrived, got in a taxi, went to the wrong race course, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but I had limited funds with me. So I spent a lot of money on an expensive taxi in Australia, just getting to the wrong racetrack to get to the right racetrack. And when I arrived, because I was late, the trainer and the head girl were waiting for me, a bit like, typical tourist type of thing. So when I arrived, I got put into another car, and we got driven to who I was staying with, had never met before, the yard girl, so the yard manager. And when you look back now, you're like, okay, well, this is pretty obvious. But at the time, I was severely jet lagged, just a little bit confused and introverted person. So I noticed she was like constantly like chewing her tongue, and I was like, well, each to their own. When I got to the house, as soon as we like opened the door of the house, the smell of drugs hit me like awful, like so strong. I walked in, I was like, okay, here we go. And she walked through and said, this is your room. Now, close your eyes with me for a moment, because I've just done a 24-hour flight. I've driven to the wrong race course. I've just been charged a ridiculous amount for a taxi journey. And I'm meeting this person who now is clearly annoyed that I'm late and says to me, this is your bedroom. She opened the door, and I'm not kidding you. It was like a normal house with an extension built on, a room with thin metal walls, and it was like a shack. There was no curtain. The curtains was a newspaper that had just torn, and the bedroom, the actual bed that I was sleeping on, was a mattress this thin that her dog was sleeping on. Her dog was sleeping on the mattress. I was like, are you kidding me? And before I knew it, she turned around and went into her bedroom and closed the door. I was like, I've got no phone, no one to call. I just met this person. There's a dog sleeping on my bed. This is my bedroom. It stinks of drugs in here. Oh my God, I honestly did not know what to do. And you're probably going to laugh when I say what I did do was I just dropped my bag and I walked out of the place because it was early morning there. It was just the start of the day in Australia. It was like 9 a.m. now. I walked to the nearest shop, which was so cool, happened to be around the corner, like a grocery store. And I got a basket, and I didn't even know why I was doing this, because I had like $30 on me. It was just like putting food into my trolley, but sobbing, like tears streaming down my face, sobbing, like profusely, like ugly crying. Like that was me, like ugly crying in the middle of the supermarket, knew no one. People were like looking at me like, all right, like sort this out. What are you doing? And I didn't care. I was so overwhelmed and confused and tired. And what happened next is probably something that if I was not in that state would never have done. Is a lovely old couple came up to me and said, are you okay, dear? I'm not even going to try and do an Australian accent. Are you okay, dear? I was like, no, but there's like verbal diarrhea and what just happened. And I think these two must have looked at each other like, okay, she needs help. And they said to me, get in our car. Exactly, get in our car. You don't know these people. We will take you to the mall, get a phone and ring your family. I got into the car with people who I did not know, still crying. They took me to the mall, this massive mall, and they bought me a phone. And I managed to ring my dad at the time. And so that was the story to Australia. It ended a lot better, and I had some incredible times. But one of the greatest things I found in Australia was acupuncture. So I was track riding, switched jobs, obviously, and found people who really made my trip, who really shared some amazing, unforgettable stories together. And in just, when you start talking about a story, you're like, oh, that happened. But I'll stick to the story of horses. I came across one of the guys there doing acupuncture, and I was amazed. Incredible response, seeing these highly strung thoroughbreds, just so soft, so relaxed, yawning, like blinking, just almost going to sleep in the stable with the acupuncture. And I was like, okay, I found my calling. I'm going to go back to the UK and do acupuncture. When I got back to the UK, finished my degree, I quickly realised that you have to be a vet to do acupuncture in the UK. Why? I mean, you can be a human acupuncturist and not have to do any form of other medical degrees. But that quickly cut that idea down. So I finished my bachelor's and met a guy who was working with horses from a behaviour perspective. Now, this guy was extremely temperamental. I'm not going to name names. He had a lot of bad stuff happen to him. And in life, when you can choose to let that stuff define who you are and how you interact with other people going forward, he loved that. He kind of like carried that as a badge of honour and caused a lot of destructive behaviour and hurt, cheated, lied, did a lot of stuff to a lot of people because of the emotion and pain that he carried. So there's one thing I learned from this man is you can change your story at any time. Yes, it doesn't mean what happened to you was fair, but you have a choice to let it either define who you are, or you can choose to change your story, how you do going forward. Tony Robbins speaks about this all the time. I lived with this family for 3 years, and I really, really recognized that is who I never want to be, and the importance of what your mind is telling you on a daily basis. But working with the team at this equine behaviorist, I really understood and learned and opened my mind again to the power of horses. So what horses can can really do. So the horses that arrived there were horses that were, you either sort these horses out or they die. They get put down. They have no other option. They're dangerous. And seeing how this team transformed these horses around and really got to understand these horses blew my mind and honestly made me fall even deeper in love with horses because, and I truly believe this to this date, that there's no aggressive horse without a reason. There's no nastiness in a horse. They are fundamentally social beings with the biggest, kindest heart and so much love to give. But I realized and quickly saw how powerful and dangerous these animals can be, especially when you don't understand and know how to read behavior. I had some really incredible stories with this team, and one of them was starting my first horse, which most of us do at home in a fairly safe environment, whereas my introduction was at an event called the Great Yorkshire Show in a round pen, surrounded by about 150 people watching, and this young horse was brought in untouched, never been lunged, never had a saddle on, never had a rider on, and within 15 minutes I was on board, saddled, and without a lunge line, trotting and cantering this horse around. So that was my introduction. It was very much like all systems go. And we actually, as a team of riders, there was 4 of us, we went to Northern Ireland and started, there's 4 riders and 2 lungers, so people on the ground. I think in 2 days we started over like 100 and something young horses. Incredible. So many lessons learned, so many lessons that I would never do again because I just think it's actually too of a quick way to do it. And flooding the horse now, what I know and understand about behavior a bit more is something I would not do. At the time, it was great fun. And it was great fun even falling off because, I don't know, younger, you bounce quicker, you seem to just get up and go again. And I learned so much so that it was really sad to leave that yard. But I found chiropractic. I found that, okay, if we can't do acupuncture, but we still want to work with horses, what can we do? And when I saw horses receive a treatment of chiropractic and I saw the difference and felt the difference, I was like, I need to get some of this. So applied to the McTimoney School in Oxfordshire and did my master's 3 years there. And whilst doing my master's, I needed to find a local job. So welcome into my life the PRE, Andalusian and Lusitano horses. Amazing breed. But I applied for this job because they already had their main rider but needed someone who could sit on the youngsters and support the main rider, whose goal was to get to Grand Prix. It's very clear. But having just come from riding the other kind of horses to these dressage horses, I was just a bit like, okay guys, is this all you're going to do? Like, I'm used to being like pulled and moved in all different directions, and these guys were like gonna buck but not gonna buck, they're gonna warm me and they're gonna buck, like, and I was a bit like, so it was honestly like definitely a breath of fresh air. There's one thing I've taken with me for the rest of my life as a rider, and that is a neck strap. A neck strap is something I will always wear and have always worn, even when I went all the way up to Prix St George, is my neck strap. So important. But the tools that I'd learned at the behaviorist in racing, the discipline, really helped me with one of the most tricky cases that I got given at the dressage yard, which was a Lusitano bullfighting horse who was owned by a very respectable and lovely, awesome person, but he bolted, dangerously bolted. And I don't know if any of you have sat on a horse that does bolt. It is scary. It is frightening. For me personally, it's something that I would rather a horse buck or rear, but when they bolt and you really have no control, it's frightening. The horses don't know what they're doing, and they're scared, and it's just not a nice position. But this horse never did that with me. Not because I'm a better rider, because I did one thing every single day. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. I did this one thing every single day. Trust. I built on our trust as a partnership. So most of our riding actually was off the ground. I did so much groundwork with this horse, not to lunge him. That's one thing about Lusitanos. You can keep lunging them, they get fitter and fitter. They do not tire. They are bred to fight bulls. They don't get tired. So the work was actually a lot slower paced. It was building his confidence, building his trust. There was a reason this horse bolted. So I knew that was always going to be a default mode in him, and my job was to build his trust so that he never had to go back to a default mode. But I always knew it was in there. I always knew that there was a risk. So every day it was no compliance. Every day was safety. Every day was the same routine of what I do before I go on his back. This got less and less over the years of working together, but it was something that I always returned to. And we went from novice up to Prix St George together, something that I never thought I would achieve as a rider, especially starting off in the dressage world at a later age. And at so many points, it was blind leading the blind, learning like half passes, flying changes, tempi changes, pirouettes. But now I see why I did it. And now I see why he came into my life, because as someone who travels the world as a chiropractor now, working with elite level horses around the world with dressage, racing, eventing, show jumping, I needed to go through those skills to get to where I am today. I needed to experience, to ride a half pass, but I understand it from an anatomy perspective, how form equals function, which means that the results are better, but also allows me to have a real understanding for what you as the rider feel on board. Forever grateful for the horse. He taught me so much. And from there, I built up my chiropractic business. But you know how they say things happen in threes. And within 2 weeks, I had been made redundant from my job. I lived there, so I had no home. I also broke up with my boyfriend, who was so cold, and had nowhere to live. And Oxfordshire, for those of you that don't know, is quite an expensive, affluent area. So renting was not on the option. Buying was not on the option then. So I had to do one thing. Not a proud moment. Very embarrassed, shame, all of those things, which was move back in with my dad at 30 years old and sleep on a mattress, not even a bed. Honestly, not proud, and I'm smiling about it now. But at the time, just to have the cherry on top of the cake, I developed adult acne. Adult acne so severe that covered the entire face, underneath my mouth, up my cheeks, under my chin here, my jawline. Working with horses in winter, we obviously wrap up, and then going from cold into the heating, felt like my face was on fire. It was, so for those of us that know this adult acne, some of us can get it, some of us don't. Mine was pure stress triggered it. But the treatment was just put steroids on it. Doctors kept telling me, put steroids on it, which just is putting a plaster on things. I wanted to know why. Why was this happening? I was healthy. I set myself as a high standard of living. I treated my body like an athlete. Why is this happening to me? I'm doing everything right, type of thing. And I was also then diagnosed with 3 out of the 4 types of PCOS, which finally explained why my periods from the age of 18 up to 30 were so horrendously painful. But as a rider, you just keep going, right? You just like, okay, well, whatever, like toughen up, take a painkiller, which is what I did. But when I kind of had this breakout on my skin, my periods then went to a whole new level of clotting and pain. Like to the point of at night, I would wear nappies, I would wear a thick pad and a tampon and still bleed through all of that every time on my period. It was, the amount of stains on the mattress was like just disgusting. And trying to get that off of a mattress it doesn't come off. It's like, it just stains. So yeah, you flip the mattress around, all of that, but in the day you can't hide it. So I got to a point where I was like, okay, you're in a pretty low spot. Yeah, pretty low spot for where you want to be, your high standard self. So I took matters into my own hand and went down the rabbit hole of researching. Okay, I'd never been told how to track a cycle. Menstrual cycle, I knew I had one, but I just dreaded it every month and would take painkillers to get out of it. Try and avoid going out in public because of the risk of bleeding through, onto furniture, onto chairs. I've done that so many times. Very embarrassing, but has happened. And I started hiring coaches, understanding what you should be eating. But there was something missing, which was the link to being an equestrian woman, the link to being a rider, because gym training was great, but gym training every single day or 4 times a week is not good and doesn't benefit you as a rider because of how tight you can become. So you added more mobility, and there is a balance to it. There is a fine art to being an equestrian rider, being equestrian fit, and it's not following the norm. So over the 2 years, I worked on 3 pillars of health. I worked on nutrition, eating whole foods. I looked at my movement, what work was I doing? I used to push myself so hard to sweat hard, thinking that's the only way that I'm working. I learned how to cycle, sync, train. So train with your cycle, when to back off, when to push yourself, when to actually gain muscle, because as a woman over 30, you lose muscle mass every single year. So just maintaining muscle is probably the aim for most of us, never mind trying to build. And the 3rd pillar is brain gym. So what I call stress management, understanding this thing, because we all take on stress every day and stress is not going to go away. Thinking we're going to live a happy life with no stress doesn't exist. We're currently in a war zone, right? It happens. I'm in Dubai, by the way. Like learning how to manage your stress levels is so important. Really understanding, okay, I feel stressed, understanding that sensation, where it is in the body, and knowing how to get rid of it or knowing not to react to it, and that the feeling will pass, the emotion will pass, so that you can make a decision based on logic and not emotion. Those are the 3 pillars. Now, those 3 pillars I became a master of. I took my period from what it was to what it is today. I'm currently on my period, smiling, no pain, no clotting, and only wearing period pants. So no tampons, none of that stuff that's full of chemicals, pure natural, right? I became a master of this, that women started reaching out and saying, how are you doing this? What are you doing? And so I spent time group coaching equestrian women around the world, helping them with understanding, first of all, a menstrual cycle, anything from women from 18 who may have just started to women in their postmenopausal years who, yes, don't have the monthly cycle, but need to understand why they have this tire of fat around their belly, cortisol belly, hormonal belly. Why is it there? Why can't we get rid of it? Doing all the belly crunches, all the ab crunches. There's a reason for it. So I work with women around the world, helping them with improving their energy levels, removing brain fog, right? Getting rid of that stubborn belly fat that we hate, especially when you put on those jods or you put on those jeans and you sit down and you just feel that tire just rolling over your jeans. Now, don't get me wrong. Everyone's standards are different. Me, I won't accept that. I don't like that feeling. Yes, of course, it's not going to affect who you are, but I get so much pride and confidence in showing up physically fit. I feel better, I think better. I am a better person for my horses, my clients, when I am physically fit. So to me, how I show up every day in my body is really important. This then gave me a real proof of concept, which helped me coach numerous women, like I said, around the world. And from there, that is now all into a book. The book is called The Female Rider Code and shares these 3 pillars as I've described today in more detail. If you took the blueprint from the book and applied it to your life, you are going to get increased energy levels. You are going to feel stronger, fitter, more balanced in the saddle. You are going to show up a better person, not only for your kids, your family, your horse, but for yourself, because I cover the 3 pillars of health. Side note, if you want more information on the book, it goes out in 2026. It's being released. Comment the word book below and I'll send you through the registration list. You're going to get exclusive bonus access. So let me know on that below. Okay, this Female Rider Code, going into the book in more detail, doing the research, recognizing that, oh my God, this is a movement. This is not just about my health. This is not just about helping the hundreds of women around the world. This is about the next generation of young girls coming through. That there are statistics to show that these young women are leaving sport, leaving horses which they might love, because of things like body image, poor confidence, feeling uncoordinated, feeling weaker, feeling sore, like they have sore breasts, feeling uncomfortable in this body as it's changed, as it's hit puberty. I don't know about you. For me, that's not good, because the youth of today are going to be helping the horses of tomorrow. They're going to be helping the horses coming through. And fundamentally, that's why I'm here. I'm here to help more horses. And I'm going to help more horses by helping more female riders, by helping more equestrian women show up better, stronger, for themselves. This is it, okay? As someone who's worked as a chiropractor around the world and will keep doing that, I love helping horses. I love solving those cases where it's like, we've had the bone scan, we've had this done, the horse is still not sound or not right. Call Nika. She's going to sit down, she's going to look at the movement map, she's going to understand why the movement map is there, look at form, look at the anatomy, and understand why this is inconclusive. There is always a reason. Horses, I come down to it. Horses are kind, extremely honest. They have no ulterior motive. They have no judgment on you. They don't judge how you show up. They feel it. So if you're showing up stressed, if you're showing up totally distracted on your phone, not fully present, they're going to let you know about it. And I love them for that. They're going to say to you, excuse me, back in the room, please. And if you're not in the room, they're going to feel unsafe. And that's what I love about them. Where I want to help is to spread the word, and not only about the Female Rider Code, but to inspire not only the youth of today, but the women going through the perimenopausal years. You are not alone. You don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have to be ashamed, embarrassed about it. What you do have to ask yourself is, who do you want to be? Because no matter what strategy you decide to do, or what supplement you take, or what green juice, or what Ozempic pill, or whatever it is, whatever the new fad is that's coming out in 2026 or 2020, whatever year this is going to be watched by you, if you don't know who you want to be in this life, and you set your values and your standards and who you want to impact or have purpose in life with, no matter what you do, is only going to be short-lived. It's only going to be so short-lived. So understanding that first, that identity, like I strongly believe that we don't actually have a discipline problem in today's day and age, in 2026. We have an identity crisis. People don't know who they are because they're on their phone doom scrolling, because they have so much noise being thrown at them from all directions about who they should be, who they could be. People showcasing only their perfect selves on Instagram, or only when they're looking great. Whatever it is, that's not reality. That's not who we are as humans. We're built for connection. We're built for community, supporting one another. So the Female Rider Code for me is not just about the book, it's about a movement. It's about creating a support network of women. Now, if you're watching this going, Nika, I'm interested, reach out. Send me a message, send me an email, or let's jump on a call. If you're sat there going, I might know someone, share this video. I'm on a real mission to not only step into my own inner authority, because I'm not gonna lie, I've been battling with my own stuff about, should I do this, should I not do this? But I keep coming back to my purpose, my identity is here to help more horses. And I ain't gonna help more horses just doing chiropractic on one-to-one. It's not gonna work that way. Not only will I burn myself out at my hands, pushing myself to do more and more and more, which affects who I am, is gonna affect my health. That's not what it's about. For me, this world, this life, this opportunity that I've been given in today's day and age is to connect more with like-minded women, to connect more with a community of people around the world that want to help more horses. That yes, no matter what you're doing, if you're a high-level athlete, fair play to you. If you are a happy hacker, fair play to you. In my eyes, we're all equal. We're all here because we love horses so much. It's a passion, it's an addiction. Whether you're paid for it or not, you love being around horses. Thank you so much for watching this, and don't forget to give me a follow and subscribe. Any questions or comments down below.